Hi, my name is Beth Heidern. I'm the Executive Director here at the Racine Zoo, and I'd like to welcome you to Racine Zoo to You. Today's episode is going to be focusing on primates. Now, they are one of the most popular animals at zoos, and we have some amazing primates here. We have orangutans, we have tamarins, white-handed gibbons, as well as spider monkeys. And today you're going to be learning from our wonderful keepers the care management that they have to go through to make sure that these animals are taken care of. These are highly intelligent animals, and they require a lot of enrichment. They require a lot of activity that's happening in their exhibit spaces and care from our animal care staff. They love to see people, and we are very, very happy that these wonderful animals are here at the Racine Zoo. So please enjoy this episode and sit back and learn all about primates, our closest relative.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm the primary primate care specialist here at the Racine Zoo. I've been zookeeping since 2001, and I've been here in Racine since 2006. While I have worked with a few different animals throughout my career, my main area of focus and really my main area of expertise is primarily primates. I really enjoy working with primates because I love to observe them throughout the day. So I like to see how they communicate with one another, whether that's verbally or non-verbally, how they solve conflict, how they play, how they raise their offspring. All of that is extremely interesting to me. So I'm very excited that I get to work with them every single day. In addition to working with our primates, I'm also the zoo's enrichment coordinator. In a second, we'll talk more about what enrichment is, but it's another passion of mine, and it's something that I really enjoy doing because I can work with staff on a daily basis to really improve the level of care that we can provide our animals.
When working with primates, one of the most important things that we have to keep in mind is enrichment. While we do enrichment with all of our animals across the zoo, it is so important with animals like primates that we keep them as engaged with their surroundings as possible. Enrichment is anything that we do with our animals that keep them occupied and elicit some of those behaviors that we see in the wild. In the wild, animals don't just find all their food in a bowl. They have to look around the forests, the deserts, or wherever their habitat is to find it. And we want to make sure that we use those natural foraging behaviors here at the zoo to keep them occupied and also to give them fun. Enrichment can be anything from a training session to scents to toys. And one of the best ways that we do enrichment with our primates here is through puzzle feeders to elicit those foraging behaviors. So those can be really simple things like a ball like this with some holes and a ball inside, so that the animal just rotates it around to get some of the food to fall out, and sometimes they still play with it even after it's empty. Or other more complicated things. Obviously, our primates are here for their life, and we want to make sure that we keep things fresh and interesting. So not only do we buy new enrichment for them on a regular basis, but we also buy things like this. This is a little maze that the animals have to manipulate and figure out. They might have to manipulate their fingers to get them inside and get the pieces out. These are really great pieces of enrichment, but we also use a lot of recycled enrichment. So a lot of things that are brought in by guests, like you can see behind me, from paper towel tubes to old coffee containers peanuts came in. These guys, the spider monkeys behind me, are actually dexterous enough that they're able to take lids off of jars. So we'll hide food inside of jars, inside newspaper, anything so that they have to work a little harder for their food, which keeps them busy, keeps them acting more like their counterparts in the wild, and just makes sure that their welfare is at the highest standards they can be. As we visit our different primates through this episode, we're going to see all kinds of different enrichment, from training for their husbandry to different puzzle feeders that we use for our primates.
We have two orangutans at the Racine Zoo. Max, our male, can be distinguished by the large cheek pads that he has on his face, or flanges. He also has a large throat sac on his chest and really long hair. So these distinguishing features are developed as they reach maturity. Prior to reaching maturity, male orangutans actually look exactly like female orangutans. Max and Jenny were born at the Henry Vilas Zoo in Madison, Wisconsin. They came to Racine in 1986 and are actually the zoo's second longest residents, having come here just a few months after our white-handed gibbons. Jenny tends to spend a lot of time up at the front of the exhibit. She likes to color in the exhibit with chalk, and she's quite active throughout the day doing a lot of climbing and swinging. When she's not active, Jenny does like to spend a lot of time in her hammocks watching our guests. Jenny's a keen observer and will spend a lot of time interacting with guests, and particularly with children. Max tends to spend more of his time towards the back of the exhibit. He's much more interested in what the keeper staff are doing throughout the day. Max is also a great problem solver. He'll spend a lot of time focused on really difficult enrichment projects and enjoys difficult training. The majority of animals at the zoo participate in our behavioral management program, more simply known as a training program. So training is another form of enrichment because it allows our animals to be mentally and physically stimulated. For orangutans in particular, we never go into the exhibit with them. So training actually allows us to shift them off exhibit so that we can clean their exhibit and provide them with new enrichment, and then shift them back onto exhibit. Training is also used just to provide them with some mental stimulation throughout the day. So we'll do fun things like play matching games or even create art projects with them. A large portion of the training with our orangutans is actually medically based. So just like with humans, going under anesthesia can have some risks. We don't want to have to use anesthesia with our animals when unnecessary. So training is one way that we can collect various samples and provide treatments without having to use an anesthetic. For our orangutans, that means they participate in things like voluntary blood draws, where we're able to draw blood as we need to and have it tested. We'll collect urine, but we'll also do things like preventative care. So as needed, we could trim nails, clean ears, and brush teeth. Orangutans are from Southeast Asia, specifically Borneo and Sumatra. They're threatened in the wild by things such as deforestation, fires, habitat loss due to oil palm plantations, and they're also captured for the pet trade and killed as agricultural pests. While the majority of my experience has been with orangutans in North American zoos, I've also been lucky enough to spend some time in Southeast Asia working on various conservation projects. Orangutans in North America are managed by the Orangutan SSP, or Species Survival Plan. This group helps us provide guidance on how to care for our orangutans in North America, but they also support conservation issues. Through this group, I've been able to travel to Southeast Asia and participate in things such as tree plantings, monitoring of released orangutans, and also tracking wild orangutans. With the habitat loss, orangutans are coming into contact with humans more frequently. This results in more orangutans being left in care of humans in Asia. While some orangutans can be rehabilitated and released back into the wild, some need lifelong human care. Because of our extensive experience here in the States, we're able to work with keepers in Southeast Asia to start training and enrichment programs for their orangutans. We are in front of our Emperor tamarin exhibit. So Emperor tamarins are a small South American primate, and these guys are insectivore frugivores, which means that they eat a variety of insects and fruit throughout the day. So Emperor tamarins actually live in an extended family group, so they'll have a breeding male and a breeding female, and then all of their offspring. Gestation for these guys is about 140 to 145 days. Emperor tamarins participate in a collaborative rearing effort. So that means that the whole family actually participates in the rearing of their offspring. Mom's going to take care of the nursing, but then dad and any other siblings in the group are actually going to take care of the babies the rest of the day. They'll do all of the carrying, they'll share diet as the babies get older and start to eat solid foods, and they'll do things like grooming them as well. We've housed Emperor tamarins here at the Racine Zoo since 2010, and we actually had our first baby born in 2014. Marquine Isabella, our breeding male and female, have had a total of 6 pregnancies during that time, with a total of 8 babies being born, so they've had 2 sets of twins born. Since 2014, the Racine Zoo is actually only one of 2 zoos in North America that's been successful at breeding Emperor tamarins. Our tamarins are quite smart, and just like all of our other primates, they enjoy various enrichment activities and they participate in our training programs as well. So our tamarins are trained to do things such as enter a crate so that we can transport them to other areas. They'll go onto scales so that we can collect weights as needed. But I wanted to try something new with our tamarins that hadn't been done before. So back in 2014, I started training with Isabella, our female emperor tamarin, on voluntary fetal ultrasounds. These ultrasounds were done with a veterinarian and myself so that we could monitor her during her pregnancies. It allowed us to monitor Isabella's health during the pregnancy, but we also were able to make sure that her fetus was doing all right. And during these ultrasounds, we started to collect measurements that eventually allowed me to be able to predict future due dates for her. Through these ultrasounds, we actually were able to determine that she was having twins during the 2 pregnancies that she did have her twins. This is a huge success for the Racine Zoo to be successful in doing this, and it's something that is going to help with zoos in the future, as all of our measurements will be used to help us and other zoos determine due dates for their tamarins. Out of the 8 emperor tamarins that we've had born here at the zoo, 4 of those have already moved on to new zoos. So our 2 females have been paired up with new mates, and hopefully they will be breeding and producing their own families in the future. 2 of our male offspring have been grouped together and they've formed a bachelor group living at another zoo. And then the remaining 4 offspring are still here at the Racine Zoo and will likely be moving on to new zoos in the future. Our last baby, Bella, was born in January of 2019. Unfortunately, 5 days after she was born, her mother Isabella passed away from a cardiac issue. This forced our staff to step in and participate in the rearing of baby Bella. So Bella was kept in an incubator just outside of our tamarin exhibit so that staff could provide care for her throughout the day and night. It is really important for the tamarins to be within close proximity to one another so that when the time for Bella to move back into the family group happened, they would be willing to accept her back into the group. Therefore, the incubator was kept just outside the exhibit so the family could watch us as we fed and took care of Bella. Once she got old enough and she could control her body temperature, she did actually move into the exhibit during the days within a smaller unit. She would spend time during the day in that unit, hanging out with her family and interacting, and then keepers would come in and feed her as needed. At nighttime, she would then return to that incubator again. During her time under our care, we worked with her every single day building up her strength. So she had a surrogate animal that she would climb onto for feeding times, and as we were feeding her, every day we would increase the distance that she had to come to that surrogate animal. That helped her build up her strength and her balance, so when she moved back into the exhibit, she would be able to come to keepers for continued feedings. So at 35 days old, she was reintroduced to the family, and within a few hours, she actually was riding around on her father's back, which was a huge success for us. That meant that the family had fully integrated her back into that group. From that point forward, staff did continue to care for Bella throughout the day. The family carried her around and they shared food with her, but she still needed formula until she was about 80 or 85 days old. So every day the keepers would come in and present her surrogate to her. She would come over to that surrogate and allow us to weigh her, and then we also provided her supplemental formula feedings as needed. While tamarins do seem to have some instinctual knowledge on how to raise their offspring, some of that also does seem to be a learned behavior. Because Bella had a little bit of a non-traditional upbringing, we were really hoping that we could get her in a situation where she would get to see offspring be born and that she could participate in the care of those offspring. Because of that, we've decided to restructure our family group. We recently had a new male come in from the Como Zoo in St. Paul, Minnesota. His name is Patino. He's been introduced to our 2 female emperor tamarins. Patino was recently introduced to both of our females, and it's hoped that he and our older female, Amelie, will actually form a breeding pair and that they'll have offspring together while Bella is still living here. This would provide her the opportunity to see babies being born and to participate in their care. And this will be a great indicator of what sort of mother she would be in the future. In continuing our ultrasound work, I've actually started working with Amelie on ultrasound training as well. So it's hoped that she will participate just like her mother did and allow me to monitor her pregnancies with ultrasounds and to continue to grow our database of fetal ultrasound measurements.
name's Emma Thomas, and I've been a zookeeper here at the Racine Zoo since 2017. I've worked in a lot of different animal departments since then, most recently with the primates, which is really special because they're incredibly intelligent, and it's really neat to be able to form these special bonds with such unique animals. Here we're in front of our white-handed gibbon habitat with Robin and Yule. Robin was born at the Franklin Park Zoo in 1979, and Yule is her father. They came here together in 1986, making them the Racine Zoo's longest residents. Yule has an estimated age of about 53 years old. He was making him the oldest gibbon in North America. He was born in the wild and was brought into a zoo, which was common practice back in the 60s. Nowadays, we understand the impact that can have on wild populations and natural environments, and so we don't remove animals from their wild habitat to bring into zoos anymore, and instead focus on captive breeding. Despite his age, Yule is very playful. He still moves around his exhibit very well and can often be seen playing and grooming with his daughter Robin, excuse me. You know, his keepers are always making sure that he's in good health, and the fact that he is able to move around is really a testament to the care that we provide him here. We train with him every day to make sure we can get a good look at him and observe him very closely while he's out on exhibit. White-handed gibbons are lesser apes, which makes them different from monkeys in that they don't have tails. They can be found in Southeast Asia, where they spend the majority of the time swinging from different branches up in the treetops. So they have incredibly long arms and very long hands, which it makes it more efficient for them to swing through the trees. This kind of locomotion has a fancy name. It's called brachiation, and gibbons in particular are known for being excellent brachiators. That really just means that they're able to move through their environment with using only their hands, and they really don't use their feet much except for when they need to leap between different trees. In the wild, they would be eating mostly fruits and leaves, and here at the zoo we make sure they get a balanced diet with different vegetables, greens, as well as fruits, and specially made primate biscuits to make sure they're getting all of the nutrients that they need. Robin and Yule are one of our more charismatic and unique individuals here at the zoo, in part because of the interesting behavior that they do called singing. So these guys will sing very loud. It can be heard for up to a half a mile away, all the way down the street throughout Racine. This is something that gibbons in the wild will do to mark their territory, make sure other gibbons know that this is their home. It is a bonding ritual for the pair, as gibbons often mate for life. Though Robin and Yule are father and daughter, they still participate in this unique behavior that all gibbons share, and it makes them one of the most interesting animals to see, I think, if you get to catch a listen.
Hello, my name is Dr. Angela Dasso. I'm a biology professor at Carthage College in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I am a bioacoustics researcher, which means I study animal vocalizations. This summer, I've chosen to partner up with the Racine Zoological Society to further our understanding of white-handed gibbon vocalizations. As you might be aware of already, Racine has two white-handed gibbons, Yule, who's one of the oldest gibbons in captivity, and his daughter, Robin. And what we're trying to figure out is why these two play together so often, and what these play vocalizations mean. In the wild, gibbons do play with one another as well, but they're so high up in the canopy that we aren't able to actually record them. And this is a very unique kind of vocalization that doesn't sound like the rest of their vocal repertoire. So we've spent the summer trying to record Robin and Yule, engaging in their play behavior and producing these sounds which sound a lot more like a sheep bleat than a gibbon vocalization. So if you had the privilege of being able to come to the zoo here, you'll know that Robin and Yule produce these really beautiful long songs with one another, but in very short bouts they also produce these little bleat-like calls as they wrestle around. And so what we're trying to figure out is how this sound fits in with the rest of the vocal repertoire and how this fits in with the rest of the gibbon's natural behavior. One of our long-term goals here is to try to boost conservation efforts by ensuring that any kind of animal and any kind of gibbon that would be released into the wild from captivity would have a proper communication system to be able to survive.
Here at the Racine Zoo, we also have a group of black-handed spider monkeys. We have 4 individuals, Twiggy, Emily, Kramer, and Rosie. So Kramer and Emily are brother and sister, with Rosie being their half-sister. Twiggy is unrelated to the other 3, but she's been with them since she was 3 years old, and they all came here to the zoo in 2001 from the Brookfield Zoo. In the wild, spider monkeys would live in large groups of 20 to 30 individuals, but then would often break up into smaller groups for feeding and sleeping, and wouldn't always all come back together to make those large groups at the end of the day. So the kind of size of troop that we have here for our spider monkeys is pretty similar to what they would do in the wild. And this type of interaction between having smaller groups and larger groups and switching around is called fission fusion, and is a pretty common social hierarchy for primates such as spider monkeys. Kramer is our only male, and he is blind due to a degenerative condition in his eyes, though you honestly wouldn't really be able to tell based on the way he moves through his habitat with such confidence. Occasionally, he'll have a bit of a time trying to figure out how to get between his exhibit and his off-exhibit areas, but with help from his keepers and the other monkeys calling to him, he's always able to find his way, and we always make sure that he's not having any trouble and that there's plenty of handholds for him to find. Despite being blind, he is really good at manipulating puzzle feeders and always gets his fair share of the diet, and the girls certainly don't seem to hold it against him at all. Here at the zoo, just like the gibbons, they get a variety of different fruits and veggies, as well as special biscuits. They are really good at manipulating puzzle feeders, probably better at it than most of our other primates. They are really good at moving and swinging through the trees. Where they come from in Central America, they would spend the majority of the time up in the canopy of the rainforest. They have a special tail to help with moving around like this. It's called a prehensile tail, and that means they're basically able to use it like a 5th limb. They can hang on to things with it, grab things, and you'll often see them hanging with just their tail while they use their hands to get food out of their puzzle feeders. That tail is bald on the underside of it, which helps them grab things with it, and it actually has a unique tail print, just like our fingers do. So each individual monkey has a unique tail print that, if we wanted to, we could use to identify them. Here at the zoo, we train with our spider monkey troop every single day. This is really important for their care, as for their mental stimulation, as well as allowing them to participate in their care. So most of the things that we're asking for them to do are presenting different body parts for us to examine and make sure everyone is healthy and uninjured. This also helps if we did have to treat something or have the vet look at something. Asking them to show these body parts isn't strange or scary, and it's something that they're used to and is part of their daily routine.
Wow, primates, our closest relatives. They are, as you can see, they are intelligent, and we have to take care of them as the caregivers here at the Racine Zoo. So you saw orangutans, our tamarins, white-handed gibbons, as well as our spider monkeys. And you can see how passionate our animal care staff is for these amazing animals. Please come to the Racine Zoo and see these animals. You can see them at 2131 North Main, just located north of downtown Racine. Reminder, we're the only zoo that is accredited with Association of Zoos and Aquariums in Racine County. We're right on Lake Michigan, and these animals would love to see you. And by coming here to the Racine Zoo, you are helping support the zoo and helping support our efforts in the care and well-being of these animals. Come and see our primates, and we'll see you next week on Racine Zoo to You.